Skyrim puts you in the shoes of the ultimate hero, the Dragonborn, someone who constantly puts their life on the line to protect Tamriel from dragons, vampires, and evil Daedric princes. Unfortunately for the citizens of Skyrim, Bethesda has also offered players a plethora of opportunities to do some dubious actions that pretty quickly make you go from wondering why you began the game as a prisoner to learning why. So, in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 8 evil things you didn't know you could do in Skyrim. Number 1. Sacrifice your spouse. Skyrim is the first Elder Scrolls game to include marriage, something which is typically a beautiful affair where two partners bind their souls together under Mara's loving gaze till death do them part. The last phrase mentioned is key here, as Skyrim doesn't offer any formal way to divorce your partner for any reason. This isn't a problem for the most part. After all, you get a fresh home-cooked meal every day, a business that generates money, and most importantly, you finally have someone that loves you. But what happens if you suddenly aren't that into your spouse anymore? This could be due to a variety of reasons. Maybe you forgot about your soldier's passion for skooma smuggling, or you realize that Erin might as well be physically attached to Mjol, and you're definitely going to run into problems when you finally install the marryable Serana mod. The point is, things can happen, and you may have to end your relationship with your spouse. Unfortunately for the spouse in question, the game is quite literal about the "till death do us part" thing. That's right, to end your relationship with your spouse, you also have to end their life. And since this is a list about doing evil things, why not go about it by sacrificing them during the quest both Thea's bidding while you're at it? It's evil, sure, but you can't deny that it certainly beats divorce court. Number 2. Adopt children that you orphaned. I think we can all agree that the first entry is a pretty despicable thing to do, but I think this one takes the cake. Alongside introducing house building and land ownership, the Hearthfire expansion for Skyrim also gave players the ability to adopt certain children in the game. And although there is a wide variety of kids with different personalities and upbringings, you can't adopt every child, at least not by default. Some children still have loving homes with parents that can take care of them, giving them no reason to be adopted. However, if something were to go wrong, and a child's parents had an accident, then the kid in question would be sent to Honor Hall Orphanage and be put up for adoption, allowing you to bring them into your homes. That's right, you can adopt children that you made into orphans, turning what was once an act of kindness and love into one of the darkest and most twisted choices that a player can make in the game. Talk about a messed up family. Number 3. Fulfill Lemkil's task. If you thought the previous entry was a little too elaborate of a way to deal with kids that you don't like, then you'll be happy to hear that Bethesda lets you be rewarded for beating up some unfortunate children. Within the small farming community of Rorikstead, players can find a character known as Lemkil. This Nord farmer is very cantankerous, particularly towards his 2 daughters, Sissel and Brit. This is because he blames the death of their mother on them, and is angry to see that her death was, in Lemkil's eyes, in vain. He calls his children a waste and compares them to weeds. He dislikes them so much that he's willing to pay the player for a very horrible service. If Lemkil witnesses the Dragonborn fighting someone within Rorikstead, then he will send you a letter praising your skills and offering to pay you to do something similar to one of his daughters. That's right, Skyrim lets you get paid to beat up children. This may seem quite out of the left field for Bethesda to include, and you'd be right. This option was likely caused by an oversight by the developers. Let me explain. Every character in Skyrim has a designated relationship with each other, with the default being neutral. However, in cases where 2 characters have a negative relationship with each other, then they could become the target of the Dragonborn during the Radiant quest Scare My Enemy, where you're hired to beat someone up. Likely, Bethesda developers didn't realize that these variables working in tandem could lead to players getting rewarded for introducing their fists to children's faces. So, Bethesda's not the bad guy here, they just didn't know what they were doing. But you certainly knew what you were doing, didn't you? Number 4. Ruin lives during diplomatic immunity. Diplomatic immunity is one of the more well-known quests in Skyrim, thanks to its unique setting and freedom of choice offered to the player. The quest has you infiltrating Skyrim's Thalmor embassy to find out what they know about the dragon attacks. One of the key players in getting you into the embassy is a wood elf called Malborn, who not only helps you with getting into the embassy, but also aids in causing a distraction, so you can slip out of the party's view unnoticed. Needless to say, Malborn is a very likable and useful friend of the Dragonborn. This makes it all the more evil that you can provide absolutely nothing to him in return when he gets caught and tortured by the Thalmor later on in the quest. Since the Thalmor agents that are torturing Malborn have the keys that you need to continue the quest, most players will help their Bosmer ally out. Hell, most players will do anything if it means they get to kill some Thalmor. But if you're not feeling like the heroic type, then there's nothing stopping you from pickpocketing the keys off one of the agents and leaving Malborn at the mercy of the Thalmor, which if you've brushed up on your lore, you know is nothing good. However, this may not be evil enough for some players. After all, all's fair in love and war, and you did just meet Malborn like a day ago, which must be exactly why Bethesda gave the option to frame Brelis, a high elf maid at the party, of fancifying one of the guests. After she rejects the noble's offers and embarrasses him among his friends, she will be accused of throwing herself at the guest and subsequently taken to the torture chambers for a crime she didn't commit. I'm sure you must be pretty proud of yourself after that ordeal. Number 5. Destroy Clan Shattershield. I don't think anyone is arguing whether or not the Dark Brotherhood are good people. We all know they're not, and working with them does make the Dragonborn a bad person for killing mostly innocent people. However, there are certain choices made during the Dark Brotherhood questline that are a bit more dubious than others. A standout example of this occurs during the quest Morning Never Comes, where the player must travel to Markarth and speak with a Nord woman called Muri. Muri grew up in Windhelm and at some point met and began a relationship with Elaine Dufont, but Muri realized too late that the relationship was all a ruse on Elaine's part to get closer to the Shattershields and steal their valuables. Once Elaine's heist was complete, Muri took the fall and was subsequently exiled from Windhelm. This is where you come in. Muri later performs the Black Sacrament on Elaine Dufont, and this on its own isn't so evil. Hell, as far as Dark Brotherhood contracts go, this one is one of the more innocent ones. However, Muri also offers extra gold to take out a second target, Nilsine Shattershield. And yeah, the story just got a whole lot darker. Muri was once seen as part of the Shattershield family. Despite not officially being a Shattershield, Muri was like a sister to Nilsine, like a daughter to Nilsine's mother Tova. Muri believes that the death of Nilsine will make her realize what she has lost and perhaps consider allowing her back into the family again. Her justification is delusional and selfish at best, and downright insane at worst. But the whole situation gets a whole lot worse once you realize that Tova previously had a second daughter called Frigga, who was killed by the Butcher of Windhelm. This means that not only will Tova be mourning the cold-blooded murder of not one, but two of her daughters, but it also means that the Shattershield clan will be in ruins, since Nilsine is the last person in the Shattershield lineage. Once everything is done, Tova will no longer see a reason to live and take her own life in her bedroom, and Torbjorn, Nilsine's father, will end up as a drunkard old man who's waiting to die along with the Shattershield clan. Number 6. Harass the local giants. Although giants in Skyrim are very territorial and seem to be primitive, they're quite fascinating creatures with an artistic side to their culture, as we can see with the various runes they have carved into their flesh and the tusks of their mammoths. And despite looking intimidating, giants will typically leave the player alone if they remain undisturbed, which makes you all the more of a menace if you choose to provoke these solitary creatures. You can of course just find the nearest giant camp and wreak havoc, but why not be just that little bit extra evil while you're at it? By going just northeast of Mistwatch Folly, you'll find a giant mourning the loss of its pet mammoth, and anyone who's lost one of their pets will know just how heartbroken this giant must feel. He doesn't even get aggressive if the player gets close to him, and just continues to stare at his woolly friend. This allows heartless players to surprise attack this giant and receive an easy giant's toe, costing only your dignity. But if that doesn't satisfy your bloodlust for giants, then maybe head down to Steamcrag Camp, a small giant encampment just south of Windhelm. There you'll find a note on one of the nearby road signs which explains that the giant here has been given leave to keep this camp, and it tells people not to disturb the giant. But, I mean, come on, who are we talking about here? Just kill the damn thing already and be done with it. Number 7. Improve the Ebony Blade. The Ebony Blade is one of the most powerful weapons in Skyrim. This two-handed Daedric artifact can be attained at the end of the Whispering Door quest in Whiterun. Not only is it a great sword that swings as fast as one-handed weapons, But the Ebony Blade also gets interesting with its enchantment. The Ebony Blade absorbs 10 points of health by default. However, you can increase this up to 30 points as long as you throw morality out the window. See, the Ebony Blade is described as being strengthened by the blood of deceit. In layman's terms, this means that the Ebony Blade will add 1 point to its health absorption for every friend of the Dragonborn that is killed with it. This can include random townsfolk that you helped out, all the way to your favorite companion who you went through thick and thin with. So long as the blade tastes the blood of the deceived, it's good to go. Just don't start wondering why nobody showed up to your wedding. Number 8. Break the Bro Code. The Bro Code, the secret doctrine that every guy must abide by, whether they want to or not. Okay, well, maybe the last part isn't true, and thankfully, so if you've decided to roleplay as a douchebag for your next playthrough. Skyrim has many marryable spouses, and if they're good enough for the Dragonborn, then they're probably good enough for the other townsfolk who are also trying to court your potential lovers. One of the more notable instances of this happening is with Camilla Valerius, the sister of Lucan Valerius, the owner of the Riverwood Trader. You've likely already witnessed the love triangle of Sven the Bard and Fendel the Woodworker, both wanting to win Camilla's heart. Their way of doing this, however, isn't exactly moral. Both suitors want you to send a defamatory letter in the other person's name. Making false accusations of someone to the person they fancy is already a pretty cruel thing to do. But why not go the extra mile and fulfill one of the suitor's requests and then later marry Camilla yourself after you retrieve the Golden Claw, forcing someone who saw you as a friend to realize that they were completely swindled out of their crush. If you want to attain maximum evil points, then it's best to side with Fendel, making him train you in archery, marry Camilla, take the money you gave to Fendel back from his inventory, and then sacrifice him to Bethia. Man, what has this video turned me into?
Subscribe to Fall Damage, you milk drinker.